All right. Good evening, everybody. Good evening, and welcome to tonight's segment, everybody. DJ, everybody, and welcome to tonight's segment about mental health, exhale for leadership and employees. I kind of brought this to the forefront and mentioned it in today's service and a little bit on yesterday, Monday as well. This is a topic that's very, very critical and crucial in our society, and mental health has become a whole world by itself, and it's been existing anyway, but it has gotten worse ever since the pandemic has started, and it's continuing to get worse every day. So we're speaking about in leadership today and those who are in different pitches. So the intro that you said, we're going to touch about pretty much majority of all the careers as well as faith-based tonight. Before we get started, we're going to go ahead and open up in prayer for the sake of time. I'm trying not to be too long with this webinar. I'm trying to end it probably a little bit after 8:30, I should say. So let's just pray for our hearts and minds to be clear as we go before God's throne. God, we thank you. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this evening, for every man, woman, and child tuning into the live and the replay. That your words are valid. Your words are valid. And everything that will be shared today will help us know what we have to do in our lives, God. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity to open our hearts today, open our minds, and just be aware of the things that we're facing and others may be facing in their lives today, God. Touch our hearts today, God. Touch our spirits today, God. And let us know that you are present in time of trouble, in time of need, in time of disbelief, and in very crucial and unforeseen circumstances, God. Lord, we thank you tonight on this blessed Tuesday night. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I have a scripture I want to open up with as well before we get started with tonight's topic. So the scripture that I pulled up tonight is Titus chapter 1, verse 9 says, he must have a strong belief in the trustworthy message he was taught. Then he will be able to encourage others with the wholesome teaching and show those who are opposed it where they are wrong. So the first part of today's segment for our mental health for leadership and employees, we're going to talk about our faith-based aspect, and in the second part of this, we'll be speaking about just everybody in general. I should say that what we're dealing with on that note. All right, everybody. So we're going to start talking about our faith base and what are some of the key things to kind of watch out for in terms of mental health. So I have a question for you all. How are you dealing with your mental health currently? Okay. All right. What is mental health and why does it matter? Mental health, which includes emotional, psychological, and social well being, is an essential part of overall health. In fact, our mental and physical health are related in the same way that good physical health affects our ability to lead healthy lives. Good mental health help us to stay healthy and lead meaningful lives. Mental health involves being able to participate in daily activities like work, school or worship or recreational activities, I should say. It develops a maintaining a healthy relationship, ability to change and cope with adversity. Sorry about that incoming text. Truly apologize. Adapted to change and cope with adversity. We all play roles in supporting each other through our mental health, right? Not all mental health illnesses can be cured, but most can be treated. In most cases, recovering from mental illnesses and mental health challenges is possible. And with the right support, many people can go on to live a happy and a productive life. Okay. So as we look at this, everybody, most of you like Pastor, what does that look like in faith base? Many of you who are, whatever position you may be in the church, wherever your church may reside in, maybe in Florida, maybe in Georgia, maybe in California, maybe New York, wherever you may be, or maybe overseas. How are you dealing with your mental health? I should say. How are you coping with it? What are some of the coping mechanisms that you're using? And how is that helping you to deal with those challenging things? I should say. How are you dealing with work? If you have a job outside of the church, or how you are dealing with if you're going back to school to get your degree, how's that working? How are you dealing with being and worshiping and dealing with the congregation and the members and all the people that contact with on a daily basis, and other things outside of church and work. You may have regular activities that you may do with your family, and maybe traveling. You may be exercising, walking, jogging, going to the gym, just doing stuff that you enjoy. How is that playing a key role into your mental health? Okay. Remember, while you do this work, it is lonely, hard, scary, exhausting, at times numbing. It's also a deep expression of caring for another human. We will never know the full impact of what we will do. And this is by the Reverend Clark Barking of Unity Age Well. So this is a like a guiding tool for mental health that I pulled up to kind of give you overall what they're speaking about. All right. So mental illness is not okay. Mental illness are very real and very common. Something to get over. No, mental illness cannot be willed away. That's not how it works. A character flaw. Mental illness is a medical condition that does not define us. They can affect anyone. Untreatable. Mental health conditions are treatable. Mental illnesses is a medical just like heart disease or diabetes. So I want to give you a compare and contrast as this is pulled up here. Mental health conditions are treatable. Mental illnesses is a medical condition, just like heart disease or diabetes. So when you have mental illness, you have to really be treated with psychiatrists, therapists, and very intensified treatment plans. See, that's the difference between mental health and mental illness. So don't try to put the same two in the same category because mental illness is a medical condition. Mental health is a condition which you're treating for that you can have coping mechanisms to help you. Okay, so here are the common terminologies about mental health. Mental health is a state of well-being in which the individual realizes their ability, can cope with their normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to contribute to the community. So not only are you learning how to use your coping mechanisms, but you're learning how to balance it out so that way you can deal with those stressors and those events that comes up in your life. Mental health challenges. Many have experienced all of us. not and does not necessarily refer to as underlying conditions or illnesses. Mental health challenges can arise in a particular stressful moment in our lives. Okay, it can be stress related. Many struggle with COVID-19, the pandemic, job loss, feeling social isolated, or grievance. And this term typically refers to as time-bound events. So these are the things that are spoken about here. It's like time-bound, all these different events that's taking place: COVID-19, job loss, feeling socially, isolated or grieving something. Now, mental illnesses are a condition in which people thinking, mood, and behavior negatively impact their day-to-day functioning over a long period of time. Mental illness can include depression, anxiety, schizophrenic, and many others. So the difference between mental health challenges and mental illnesses is just showing you the difference between the two. See, the difference between mental health and mental illnesses is a condition that's in the mind. Same as mental health, but with mental health, you have coping mechanism. But with mental illnesses, they have to be treated with some type of medication to suppress those feelings. Even with some type of mental health things, you may have to have something to kind of cope with that too. But we're looking at long term of it, and mental illness includes depression, anxiety, schizophrenic, and other things. But mental health is talking about the stressors, the unexpected events that takes place in your life that you didn't expect to happen, and it causes you to really feel drained and exhausted. I should say, there's many times, and I'm speaking to our leaders, that you may have been feeling drained, and you may have felt like nothing would ever get where you want it to be, but at the same time, you're beginning to realize that hey, there's some things I need to really deal with within myself, and I have to really deal with this myself in order for me to really figure out the blessed treatment plan. How many, for show of hands, how many of you all have hobbies or things you like to do in your spare time outside of doing what you're doing with your ministries, I should say? Do you have, you like playing checkers, you like playing video games, you like watching movies, you like to draw, you like to paint, you like to take vacations, you like to have something to keep your mind occupied? And those things are very important to you because you have a tendency to get to a place, not only are you so out of tune, but you just feel like you have to do everything for everybody. No, take time and breathe, leaders. Take time and deal with yourself because it's very, very critical in the times that we're living in that you take care of your mental health. Having that self care and that self love and that self awareness about if something in your body doesn't feel right, mentally and physically, you are all obligated, and I'm saying this, to take that break. Even if you take a drive to the beach or take a walk on the beach or even go to the park and take a walk, as long as you're doing something that really benefits you, it really is going to help you tremendously. And it's going to give you some things to really look at in a different aspect, I should say. And that different aspect is going to really trains you drastically. Thing about it is caring for yourself is very important. So don't ever feel like you can't care for yourself. No, no, no. Because stop putting yourself in that predicament where you're not. Oh, I can't. You have to care for yourself because your body will start talking, and what it does, it starts sending warning signals to you, and you may have an element in your back, or your feet start hurt, or your knees start to ache, or your stomach and your shoulders start to get tense up. That's stress. Those are little warning signs to let you know to slow down and breathe, slow down and relax, slow down and take a consideration that you matter. Your health matters, your mental health matters, and it's very important to really take that consideration because when you take that time for yourself, not only are you caring for yourself, but you're pausing for that moment to say, hey, I need to do this for me. Okay. So, leaders, caring for yourself is very, very important. Okay. Self care is recommended. Caring for your body, moving and stretching, connecting with loved ones, heck, delegating, delegating as much as you can. You may want to disconnect from your computer or your phones for an hour or two, or maybe for the whole entire day. Let people know to say, hey, I'm not going to be available for X amount of time. You can reach me after that. That's that downtime, leaders, that you need to have for yourself so you can be replenished and regenerate. You have to be replenished and you have to regenerate. You have to replenish and regenerate yourself because you're not going to be good if you can't pour into other people and nobody's pouring back into your empty cup. Okay. Limit your time and exposure on certain things that is catching your eye. When you know you start to feel that anxiety and that emotion, start working on breathing. Start journaling, start drawing, start finding things to help deal with that. Take a walk away from the situation and come back and deal with it later. The only way to do that is to really start navigating your emotions. You can't fix everybody's problem all the time. You can't always be a solution when you're not really benefiting yourself. And when you're not benefiting yourself, you can't really help anybody else when you're completely exhausted and drained. And when you're completely exhausted and drained, you can't pour into an empty glass of water and there's nothing that's being poured back into you. So you have to really understand what that looks like. In Stern Life, your task starting to manage scheduling things. Say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes with myself. I'm going to spend an hour at lunch. I'm going to spend X amount of time with myself, dealing with myself, so that way I'll be able to understand what that looks like. Okay. Caring for your congregation is very, very important. Leaders, that you demonstrate the things that you're doing in your life with your own mental health. As you caring for your mental health, you want to share that with your congregation. You want to express that empathy that is very important for them to take care of themselves as well as yourself. So you begin to share the mental health concepts of things that you may be doing with yourself and how you're spreading through amongst the congregation is showing that there's somebody who's listening, there's someone who cares, and there's support and help people navigate through these challenging times they may be facing in their life. A lot of times you hear people say, I need to take a mental day because they're exhausted mentally in the mind. And everything else starts to really shut down. And when everything starts to shut down, then you be like, okay, I really need to take this out and deal with me. Let people know, hey, I'm taking this day to deal with me. You're like, how is that so? You can't run every race if you have no energy to do so. I'm gonna say that again. You can't run every race if you don't have energy to do so because you are gonna be so worn out that you can't even function. You don't know if you don't know if you're coming or going a lot of times. That's why it's so important. This is why May is mental health awareness, and this mental health May made mental health awareness one has been going on for a while. Now everybody's really speaking about it more and more and more. And it's going inside the churches and other nonprofit organizations to let people know this is some real serious stuff that people are going through. Even leaders go through it. And this is why we're having this live tonight to encourage leaders to take time to deal with you. Because you are here in your position and you need to make sure you're good. Yeah. All right. All right. It's also good, leaders, to have people in your corner to remind you that, hey, get yourself together. Take that break. Remove yourself from that situation. It's okay to kick your feet back and relax. Don't think you have to be Superman and Superwoman all the time. No, relax. If you like going fishing, go fishing. If you like to get on the boat, get on the boat. If you want to take a cruise, go take a cruise. Okay? Enjoy life. Enjoy life outside of your church. Enjoy life and just enjoy your business. You don't have to be serious all the time. Kind of chill out, relax, breathe. You're human. You can live a productive life, respectfully, and do it. That's not fun. Okay? You don't have to be all clenchy. No. Go enjoy your life. That tension starts in that neck. And it goes in other parts of the body. You start having headaches, you start having pressure problems, you start stressing out. Go enjoy life. Go catch a movie, heck. Go get you a bite to eat. Go to the mall, buy you some clothes. Take a walk outside your front door. Go jump in the pool. Go ahead. Go take a getaway somewhere. Go to a resort and spend that weekend just detoxing yourself and start regrouping and getting yourself back on course. Because it's very detrimental when you don't take time for yourself. Leaders, you have to take time for yourself. Yeah. Like, for instance, me, personally, truthfully, I should say, with mental health, for me, I have to learn how to disconnect. Because once you get through teaching and preaching and doing webinars and having conversations with folks, I have to have that time for myself. But I'm like, okay, I found watching movies. I definitely love my music. And sometimes I just go sit outside and just enjoy nature. I'm a woman of nature. I love sitting outside or being somewhere where it's peaceful and quiet. You can hear the birds chirping and all that great stuff. It just brings me so much peace. When it's quiet like that, because it's very, very important for my mental health. Prioritizing tasks by urgency. Learning how to find out put it in a category. What's important, what's not important. And start categorizing those things so that way you don't put so much pressure on yourself. Plan ahead of time so you can work accordingly. Maintain as possible for financial purposes. So basically, what that looks like is really taking that time and organizing and coming up with a game plan and how to handle money, because money can be a stressor too. When you have a system that works for you and you see it helping you over and over again, work through that system. Now, it's easy to be overwhelmed with demands of those who are past on, grieving, scared, or lonely, or reckless. Breathe. Identify the priorities and either do or delegating them. Understand that you may not be able to accomplish everything. Ask for help and do your best and move on to the next situation. If things come up, learn how to diligence these things, okay? Learn how to be according to what you're looking at. If somebody has passed on, you handle that accordingly. Somebody is grieving someone passing on, you deal with that. If it's with somebody comes to you about being scared, or even yourself, you may be dealing with it. Deal with it accordingly, but prioritize those things so that way you'll be able to understand what that means for you in the long run. Here's a good one. Take time in your day to feel thankful for something, even something very small. It's very important to take that time. It's very important to really understand what that self care aspect looks like. Okay? All right. So, how can you support the mental health in your community? Now, how can you support it? Leaders. It starts with you. It starts with you taking that time and really evaluating yourself and how you feel. So that way you can pour back into your community. Okay. So when you learn the basic coping mechanisms on how to deal with some of the things that you're dealing with, you can go out and share the community. Say, hey, I'm teaching you about how to deal with feeling anxiety. I'm teaching you about loneliness. I'm teaching you about sadness. I'm teaching you about physical distancing and isolating and all of those different things. And the coping tips will help you get a better understanding. All right. Try to remain positive. Coping and coping and emotional well-being. Trying to stay positive can be hard at times. But when you use your breathing as a tool to help you through that. Remind yourself of your strengths. Connect with friends and loved ones. Go out and get exercise if you're not under the weather and identify what you are feeling and usually healthy coping skills. Start to identify these things because when you start to identify these things, leaders, you begin to understand where you are as a person. See, like I said, it starts with you dealing with you so that way you can be more productive. So take this live today as a clear notion of what you want to see and what you want to be improved for yourself. That way you have a better understanding of what that looks like for you. All right. All right. So this is talking about generally one should be concerned about mental illness rather than a healthy response to the high stressful situation if it was. Symptoms of stress continue on for a significant length of time and are not paralleled by external stressors. Symptoms of stress can magnify and or be experienced most of the day. Symptoms of stress begin to affect a person's ability to care for themselves or build in relationship with others. Okay. So there's something that's really deeper where you may have to see a psychiatrist or a therapist to give you further evaluations on how to deal with your stressors and how to handle them in certain factor, right? When to refer to mental health professionals when you start having negative thoughts. When it has finally gotten to that place where you're trying to figure out what you're going to do, this is where it starts with you really start to say, okay, I'm having mixed emotions, I'm feeling things, doing stuff that's not right. I know there's something wrong, but I really need to get myself the help. And that's where you have to step back and say, I really need to do this for me. Because in the long run, it's going to benefit me in the long run. Okay. So as we look at this scenario, there's always support. It's okay, leaders, to go out and seek outside counsel. Like, wait a minute, it's okay. You need to talk to somebody. It's okay because you're human. We're all human, and it's good to have that extra outlet. You may have a crisis that you need, or you may have someone you want to talk to in confidentiality, and it's okay because you know your triggers and you know your emotions, and you know what you can handle and what you can sustain in that aspect because you're reaching out for these things and you're really reaching out for it because you see something that's happening inside of you that you don't like and you want to be able to handle it and you want to be able to really deal with some very really drastic things. So here's another spirit. I want to share this with you all. I'm going to share my screen to show you the stressors here. Okay, give me a second, OT. I want to show this to you. I want to show this. Let me move this here. And I want to show this. I want to show this screen with you all. I want you to really look at it because it's talking about the common stressors here. Okay. I want to share this with you all. All right, let me take myself out the equation so you can. So that way you can all see it. I should say, there we go. So here's some stressors here. All right. So we have cognitive, we have emotional, we have physical, we have behavioral, and we have spiritual. Okay. So we're going to go through each category, everybody. So that way you can kind of see. We're going to start with the cardinal. It's past 8:30, so I guess it's going to be running till 9. I'm trying to not go past it, but this is a lot of content to cover. So cognitive behavior means poor concentration, confusion, disoriented, indifferences, shortened in attention, memory loss and flashback and intrusive images, unwanted memories, the difficult time making decisions, impaired thinking, hypervigilant nightmares. Okay, so that's cognitive behavior. The next one is talking about emotional shock, numb, feeling overwhelmed, depressed, feeling lost, fear of harm to one, self and or loved ones, feeling nothing, feeling abandoned, certain of feelings, boiled emotions, anxiety, guilt, grief, denial, irritable and agitated, problem controlling one's emotions, physical, nauseating, lightheaded, dizzy, gastrointestinal problem, rapid heart rate, trembling, headaches, grinding of the teeth, fatigue, poor sleep, pain, hyperarousal, jumpiness, muscle tension, chest pain, difficult breathing, and profusing sweating. The next one's talking about behavior, means suspicious, irritable, arguing with with friends and loved ones, withdrawal, excessive silence, inappropriate humor, increase or decrease of eating, change in sexual desires or function, increased smoking, increased substance use or abuse, increased alcohol consumption, panting, erotic movement, acting out, changing in unusual communication, restlessness, or emotional and outbursts. Okay. Anger at God, or spiritual sources, feeling distant from spiritual sources, withdraw from from places of worship, uncharacteristic religious involvement suddenly turn towards spiritual sources. Familiar faith practice seems empty. Religious rituals seems empty. Belief that spiritual sources are powerless, loss of meaning and purpose, sense of isolation from spiritual resources and faith community, question of one's belief, anger or spiritual leader, or you may be angry at yourself, believing spiritual sources are not controlled, believing sources do not care, and believing that we have failed God, or spiritual sources. So these are the common stressors that we're looking at here, OTM. And these are just examples. It talks about emotional, it talks about emotion, talks about physical behavior and spiritual. So this thing run deep. It run real deep. Okay. All right. The next point we're talking about is trauma. Some people have maybe experienced trauma, right? Real tremendous trauma that really hurt them. As leaders, when things start surfacing up, how do you cope with it? How do you handle it? How does it make you feel overall? Doesn't make you feel good, does it? It makes you feel overwhelmed, it makes you feel stressed, it makes you have anxiety, it makes you have panic attacks, it makes you feel things that you don't want to feel. Okay? You have a difficult concentrating, you feel more irritable than usual or constantly angry, you become withdrawn, avoiding, reminds you of the experience. So you have a lot of mixed emotions that's happening inside of you. Okay? So you may have things that you have experienced. And this is where we're starting to start migrating into the first responders. Okay. How is it affecting those who are in survivor support workers? How is the law enforcement and how local government employees and emergency rescues and experience controllable demand to meet the needs of the survivors in the community? How is that affecting them? See, we talked about what's going inside of the churches and even in those who have ministries outside, and how it's affecting them. How is it affecting those who have to go help those who dealing with that mental health? How is it dealing with their mental health? How is it affecting the EMT, the firefighters, the police officers, and doctors and nurses, and all of them in that particular? How is that dealing with that? How are they feeling? How they're fatigued and they're frustrated, and a lot of them, and let's just be transparent, had to step down from that position because it became very overwhelming. Some of them never experienced that kind of that trauma in their life like that, and they don't know what to do. And a lot of them have kind of got out of that lifestyle and try to transition to something different or just retire for good and just enjoying their life because that mental health aspect really took a great toll on a lot of them, and they really struggled with that. It started to affect the teachers, it started affecting the principals, and the secretaries, and the assistant principals, and everybody was affected during the pandemic. Everybody was affected, and it caused them to really spiral under control to a point that so many teachers end up leaving those positions, and nurses end up leaving, and doctors leaving because it was too much to bear. How is it affecting the lawyers that are in position? How does that affect the lawyers, the judges, and the bus drivers, and the people who are working in the pharmacies, and people who are in the grocery stores, and those who are truck drivers, and those who work at convenience stores and gas stations, and doctors' offices? How's it affecting those who are in the nursing home, those who are RNAs and CNAs, and how does that affect them overall? How does that really make their emotions feel? How does that really play an important key part to that? And how is it really causing them to really feel about stuff? Let's get into this conversation because as we talked about the faith based and how dealing with mental health for themselves, now we're tying into all the different jobs out there. How did they deal with their mental health? And how did that really benefit them? And how did they really cope with them? A lot of them really didn't take it very well. A lot of them, excuse me, are still currently dealing with their mental health at this very moment. So I touched a lot of bases of a lot of positions out there and what they have to face, how they're dealing with it in the correctional facility, how they're dealing with it in terms of those who are teaching in colleges and in other parts of the states. How was the people who deal with social work? How did that affect their mental health? How about the daycares? All right. How about those who are doing construction work? How about those who are delivery drivers and UPS drivers and those who work at the postal store, post office? How did it affect the workers inside the post office? Those who were delivering for priority or just making daily routines with men? How did that affect all their mental illnesses? I should say some may have mental illnesses, some may have mental health. How does it affect them all right. How does it affect the people that work in the vets for the animals? Not all of them. How does it affect the people working at the bank? How does it affect anybody who has an entrepreneurship position and those who work for a 9 to 5 position or even work at home? How has work at home experience been for you all? How has it affected you overall mentally? Has the job become a little too stressful? Has it become overwhelming? Has it been so overbearing? These are some of the things you should ask yourself. Be like, how do I deal with this? How do you deal with it? By addressing it straightforward at hand. Okay. So we're gonna talk about everybody as we end this topic because I have a lot more nuggets to share with you all. Tips of coping with loss and grief. Accepting your feelings, talking about your loss, taking stock of what is going well, knowing what resources are available, focus on things with your control, limit your exposure to media coverage, okay? Take a break, be a part of a community, ask for help if you feel overwhelmed. These are key points that talks about loss and grief, everybody. All right, and it's going to help you understand certain things, I should say, and that is very detrimental. I want to touch about this, and now we're going back to the faith thing again. Alternating. During the time of the pandemic, a lot of services weren't in person. A lot of services were virtual for people. It's like, oh, you went there. It's just sitting right here in my screen. I was going to like scroll something, speak on that. How did it affect you as a person to be in that environment? And how did that make you feel emotionally and spiritually and mentally as you had to perceive these services, the unexpected events that may have took place during that time? Because it can be very, very overwhelming to be dealing with things that are completely out of our control. And how did you handle your moods? Did you pray about it? Did you seek God about it? Did you meditate in God's word? Did you just take time and just really focusing on allowing yourself to be moved out the equation and let God use you? How did that look like for you for those who are in leadership positions, pastors, apostles, assistant pastors, youth ministry, young ministry, whatever your role may be? How did that really make you feel to be a part of that? And how have you at this current time dealt with your mental health? And how is it really starting to change you every single day? All right. So here's some warning signs. These are suicide prevention suggestions. The number is for national is 988 for suicide. If you're having those thoughts and emotions, it's very, very important. So here are the warning signs. Talking about wanting to die or to kill themselves. Looking for a way to kill themselves, such as searching online or buy a gun. Talking about feeling hopeless or have no reason. Simply talking about feeling trapped or in unbearable pain. Increase the use of alcohol, drugs, acting anxious or agitated behavior, recklessly sleeping too little or too much, withdrawing, isolating themselves, seeking rage or talking about seeking revenge, and display extreme mood swings. So those are the warning signs, leaders, that you have to be watchful. within yourself and ask God to help you to get yourself back on track, to get back on course. And like I said, some people have mental health aspects, and they have some people who deal with mental illness, which is a medical condition that has to be treated differently. Okay. Yeah. So physical distance can make warning signs harder to observe. So you may have that mental thing going on, but then you have that physical distance where you don't want anybody to touch you, you don't want anybody to be around you, you kind of withdrawing yourself from folks. So you have to be very mindful about it because people have those emotions. So maybe dealing with, like I said, depression or anxiety or other mental illnesses that's triggering these things. And leaders, what are some of the things that you have thought about for dealing with you? Excuse me. In terms of handling certain situations. Okay. How do you talk to somebody about certain things that you're dealing with? Looking for signs and symptoms, asking them directly, or listening, no judgmental, listen to a person, know you are concerned and well to help. So what that looks like is basically talking it out. Basically just pouring out all your emotions and your feelings and share like, hey, I'm really going through something. I need somebody to really remind me and get me back on course because I'm really I really having that place where I'm really starting to get beside myself. And it really becomes a real eye opener. Okay. So, by you being a mental advocate, leaders, and those who are in positions, we're speaking about how this has impacted you and your experience sharing all these good resources and information with others in the community for housing and rescue services, employment, domestic violence, senior services, and other issues that affect ensure that they get all the right tools and information to help them. Promoting self care is very important. Invite those to do something fun. Have like a movie night. Have like a day out at the beach or have a day out at the water park. Something that makes them feel loved and appreciated, I should say. Right? Right. So I have another article I want to share with you. As I talked about each topic tonight, it talks about it in different aspects. And this last part I'm sharing with you, I'm not going to just give you some very important key points to kind of pour into your spirit tonight because of the sake of time, I should say. So, number one, know the impact. Know the impact and know what that really means for yourself and how it only impact what you impact and how you impact really matters. All right. The second one talks about give me a second. Silence. Beginning to open up and start sharing your experience of things you have dealt with in terms of your mental health. Okay. The next one. When you're willing and free and open, share. No pressure. Just open up and share. Be surprised at people that you will be impacting and how it would change their lives by you sharing your story of what you have experienced and how it benefits them and to want to become better than where they are right now. So if you have any questions or concerns, you can comment in this live or you can inbox me directly regarding this live that I'm speaking about tonight on time. It's a lot of important nuggets out here that everybody has to be aware of. get back to the last few key points. And at the end of this live, I'll actually share the last flyer for this month for mental health. All right. Number 3 talks about delivery affordable access. So pretty much what that looks like is making you aware, deliver affordable access. See, in certain scenarios, when you need that extra outlet and you're not able to afford those visits. This is why telehealth has become a very, very important outlet for people to use because not only will they be able to talk to someone, but they'll be able to, how do I say it, be able to navigate things down in terms of what that looks like for their leaders and those who have jobs in all aspects and higher positions and under, I should say. Build a culture of well-being. What that culture looks like is basically surrounding your people who really understand and can relate to what you're feeling and how you're dealing with things right now. All right, all right, OT. I pray that each and every last one of you tonight learn something from this live. This live is for leaders and those who are in higher position rates and those who are employed. And it goes along for everybody who's going through something. I did webinars for youth, children. I did webinars for the women's and the general and the elderly. So I covered all my bases. Okay? I pray that everything that was shared tonight will be a blessing to you. So I have 3 scriptures that I want to bless you with. 2 Timothy chapter 1 verse 7. For God did not give us a spirit of fear, but the power of love and sound mind. Deuteronomy chapter 31 verse 8 says, He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. Isaiah chapter 31 verse 1 says, Do not fear, for I have redeemed you, and I have called you by name. You are mine. Lord, we thank you tonight. We close tonight's live. That every man, woman, and child that's tuning into live and replay has taken something very important away to help them through their daily routine. Father, we honor you today and we glorify you on this blessed Tuesday night. That you get the glory, that you get the praise, Father. In the mighty name of Jesus. Lord, I thank you tonight for your unfailing love, that you care about us tremendously. Lord, I just thank you and honor you. In your precious son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, OTM. I love you all. Have an amazing and terrific Tuesday night. I'll see you all in the AM with our daily devotion. So you all be blessed, be empowered, be lifted, take care, and God bless, and good night.